This is Dry Movie 7. This is Dry Movie 8. Get some shots, get some popcorn. Now, let's get to it.
Okay, so, I didn't know I realized, isn't? Nope, if I could zoom. Okay, it's like the first time, actually. Yep, I was getting some ideas.
We're back.
Whoa, okay, I was gonna keep them on.
I know, if I could assume.
Right, I didn't know this.
Nope, I was gonna follow the trail.
Yeah? Right, I should know this. Whew.
So, you was gonna keep them mine?
No, someone's left in my ears.
Of course, you didn't know this?
Nope, if I could assume, someone's left in my ear.
Of course.
I know, right? If I could assume, I didn't know this.
Nope. I was gonna keep on the trail before you know this.
Right, I shouldn't know this. So, are we gonna keep them on?
No, if I could assume, but Jelly. I didn't know this, right?
Yeah?
Of course.
I know, I was trying to figure it out with them, Vigilante. If I could assume, I didn't know this.
Right. I was gonna know this stuff from now on.
Yeah?
I know. If I could assume, I know this.
Nope. I was gonna keep them on. I didn't know you realized that from now on.
I know. If I could assume, I didn't know you realized that.
Nope. Oh, for some reasons. Whoa. Cool, right? I, didn't know you realized that.
I know. I was not getting this close originally. Until I didn't know this.
I should know. Well, I was trying to figure this out with them, definitely.
Right, so, you can assume?
I know. This one's all familiar, Vigilante.
Right. I didn't know this.
Nope. So, I was gonna keep in mind.
I know, eventually. I didn't know you realized that.
Yeah, I know. If I could assume, Vigilante. I didn't know this, right?
Nope.
Okay, I was gonna keep in mind from now on. If I could assume, I didn't know this.
Nope. I was gonna keep them on.
I know, eventually. I didn't know you realized that.
Nope.
Okay, if I could assume.
Whoa.
I know. So, you can assume?
Yep. This one's a lot familiar.
I shouldn't know this. If I could assume, I didn't notice that.
Nope.
Right. I didn't notice that.
Of course.
I know.
For some reasons,
Yep. I didn't know this.
I know. It's like that for some reasons.
Nope.
Why shouldn't know this?
Oh, this one's left me very originally.
Right, of course. I was gonna keep them in mind.
I know. You can assume?
Yep. It's gonna follow the trail before you know this.
Right. So, didn't you realize that?
I know. I was gonna keep that in mind from now on, definitely.
Right. If I could assume. So, did I realize that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you realize that?
Yep. If I could assume.
Okay.
I was gonna keep it in mind.
Right. I shouldn't know this.
Wait, how did I need to notice that?
I know. Trying to figure it out with them.
Right. I shouldn't know this.
Yeah. I was gonna keep them in mind.
I know, eventually. I was gonna leave the trail before you know this.
Right. I did notice that.
Of course. So, can we fix up with them?
No, not yet. If I could assume, I didn't know you realized that.
I know, for some reasons.
Right, of course. I didn't know this.
Nope, I was not getting so close to it.
I know, can't put up with them.
Why? I didn't know this.
Nope. If I could assume, you keep leaving the trail.
I know, definitely. It's like that for some reasons.
Nope. If I could assume, I didn't know this. Yeah?
I know. Someone's a lot familiar.
I didn't know this.
Nope. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
I know. I was gonna keep the mind from now on.
Do you realize that?
Yep. I didn't know you realized that.
I know, eventually. From now on. So, you can assume?
Yep. Someone's left in my ear.
Of course. So, you didn't know this?
Nope. I was gonna keep the mind.
Right, so you can assume to keep on trail?
No?
Of course. I didn't know this, right?
Meow meow.
Of course. I was gonna keep them on.
I know. If I could assume, I didn't know this.
Nope. I didn't notice that.
I know, eventually. I didn't know this.
Nope. I was gonna keep on trail before you know this.
I know. Someone's left in my ear.
Okay, I was gonna keep in mind.
I know. If you could assume.
Yep. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
Why? Shouldn't know this.
Well, I was gonna keep in mind.
So, did you realize that?
Yep. I didn't know this.
Right, if I could assume?
Nope. I was gonna follow the trail.
Of course.
I know, right? I was gonna keep them on.
I know, eventually. If I could assume, I didn't know this.
Nope. This one's a lot familiar, Vigilante. If I could assume, I just keep leaving trail, you know that?
Right, I was gonna keep in mind, isn't?
Nope. If I could assume, Vigilante, this one's a lot familiar.
Right, I shouldn't know this. From now on, Vigilante. So, you didn't know this?
Nope. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
Right, I was gonna know that.
Of course.
Meow? Meow?
Okay, shouldn't know this. Do we have to put up with them?
No. If I could assume, I didn't know this.
Nope. I didn't know you realized that.
I know. Try to put up with them, Julie. Did I realize that?
Yep. If I could assume, Vigilante, this one's a lot familiar.
I know. I was gonna keep trail before you know this.
Alright. I didn't notice that.
Nope. I was gonna keep the mind from now on.
Right. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
I know. I was gonna keep that mind, okay? For some reasons, I didn't know you realized that.
I know. I was gonna keep them on.
I didn't know this. Yeah? I know, eventually. This one's a lot familiar.
Right. I didn't know this.
Nope. I didn't know you realized that.
I know. Can't put up with them.
Meow?
I know, eventually. Did I realize that?
I know. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
Right. I did notice that. So you can assume?
Yep.
So, how you did notice that?
I don't know.
Of course. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
I know. I was gonna keep the mind.
Right. Wait, how you didn't notice that?
I know. I was gonna keep the mind.
Why I didn't know this?
I know, right?
Yep. I was gonna follow the trail before you know this.
Of course.
I know. I was gonna keep in mind.
Did I realize that?
Yep. I was gonna keep in mind that one.